All right, thank you very much. Welcome to webinar 06. This one is on reactive classroom management. So something that teachers will be using every day in the classroom, all the time. Whether it's very obvious or very subtle, there is a lot to classroom management, especially reactive classroom management. So we'll get stuck into it. We'll go through the webinar, and at the end, as usual, we'll have some questions and discussion opportunity. So today, we've got our introduction. So just another reminder, if you weren't attending or you didn't view the proactive classroom management last time, what's the difference between reactive and proactive? We're going to be talking about emotions. It's one of the most important things to discuss in terms of our reactions. Response. So how do we actually start to address these misbehaviors or any particular behaviors that happen in class? We're going to talk about the visibility. So seeing is believing. And we're going to have some examples of some useful actions or useful phrases that can be used in the classroom. And then our Q&A session at the end, or just discussion session at the end, which would be really good. All right, so let's get started. If there are any issues, feel free to let me know, like sound issues, like last time. I think, Jay, you helped me out when the microphone stopped. That would be great if you could just let me know again if anything comes. Cool. Thank you very much. Right, so our introduction, reactive versus proactive. So a refresher from last month. Reactive classroom management is what we're focusing on today, and that is addressing problems and disruptions after they arise. So focusing on resolving issues as they appear. Whereas proactive, which we talked about in the previous webinar 05, was anticipating potential issues and creating a structured and positive environment to prevent them from it. We're talking about reactions and how we respond essentially to our students today. All right, so the purpose. Essentially, students will always misbehave, get distracted to a degree. It's natural, it's perfectly natural. Responding appropriately is key to keeping them on track while maintaining a positive learning environment. Okay? You don't want your reaction to turn the learning environment into a negative space, to make it more difficult for them to actually engage in the lesson development. Now, consistency, as we talked about in the previous lesson, is key again. Consistency ensures predictable outcomes, which helps students understand expectations and fosters a stable and respectful learning environment. So if you react consistently to certain behaviors, then students will understand, when I do this, then they can predict the teacher will do this. And so they understand how they fit into the classroom as a whole and how the teacher will manage the classroom. So being consistent. First of all, our second part really, but talking about emotions. Getting into emotions is really important. So controlling your emotions is vital. Calm and collect. Maintaining composure while addressing issues is critical. Losing your cool can lead to an escalation of the situation or loss of respect from the students. If you get angry and maybe you're yelling or you're raising your voice or you maybe start randomly disciplining students that don't seem to match what they've been actually doing, like you're coming up with random ways to sort of almost punish students because you're upset, you're not setting a very consistent, fair, or respectful learning environment, or it's not very positive. So we want to remain calm and collected as much as possible. And it's important to actually talk about some techniques we can use. So here are some composure techniques, and they can actually all be used at the same time. So first of all, breathe. Take slow, deep breaths to calm down and regain your focus. Pause for a moment. Take 5 to 10 seconds before continuing to reset yourself. So there's nothing wrong with taking a pause, and this pause, and we'll talk about later, can also be used as a technique to get students under control as well. And take this pause to reset yourself, start your breathing, also remind yourself during this time, it's not personal. It's in the nature of kids to be a bit chaotic. So don't take offense to it. They may say something rude. They may continually not listen to what you've asked them to do, but it's not personal. It's not an attack on you. It's them just being their chaotic individual selves. So just remind yourself that. And ground yourself. So focus on what you can feel with your senses. Your sense of touch, your hearing, your smell, your sight. These sort of things, these exercises you can play in your mind are really good to actually compose yourself. Because really, if we're all being honest as teachers, there are times that our students can really get on our nerves. And it's important to just not take it out on them. So find ways in the moment to compose yourself if that is one of the issues you may potentially face. And you can do all of these sort of at the same time. Pretty much, I breathe, like I take the deep breaths, I'll pause, and I'll remind myself. We don't use the grounding technique as much, but I do know it's a very useful technique in self-composure and like even meditation. It's good. Now, we're talking about strong emotions. When emotions are high, logic is low, right? It's difficult to effectively deal with an issue at hand if we're just being all very emotional. So that's whether it's you're emotional or whether it's the student's emotional, okay? If anyone is, in the whole situation, is being quite, frustrated, angry, or upset, or sad, or something like that, it's very hard to reason and move forward. So when there strong emotions are involved, they must be dealt with before the behavior can be correct. Okay, so maybe you need to compose yourself before you discipline a student, so you don't do something unfair or something that doesn't quite match what the student has done. Or maybe the student is upset, and you need to perhaps calm them down before you start telling them to get back onto task. Because if they're upset and you just tell them to get back onto task, then you're ignoring their perspective and what they're going through, and they'll feel disrespected by that, as they should. So you need to be mindful of that as well. So now let's talk about the actual response that we're going to take. So how to address the misbehaviors or just behaviors in general that you want to maybe reduce. Okay, so to respond effectively, we want to address behaviors promptly, so quickly. You want to do it in the moment. You don't want to wait until later on to address it. I'll talk more about that shortly. Same with empathy. Show your values of care and positivity, right? Students can generally tell when a teacher doesn't really care. They're just sort of there to do a job. They walk in and they sort of, speak at them for a bit and then they leave. So if you show that you care, they're more willing, I guess, to engage with you. And clarity. Be clear and direct so they understand. If they don't understand what you're saying, they're not really going to know how to achieve what you want them to do. Okay, so for prompt response, it's good for several reasons. If you can resolve a situation before it escalates, then that's ideal, because you don't want an escalated situation, do you? So maybe some students, for example, students are talking. If you let them continue talking, then maybe they start talking louder. Maybe more people start talking with them, or it turns into like huge laughter or something like that. So you need to address it quickly so that they can't have the opportunity to increase or to escalate that situation. And expectations. So if you reinforce the desired behaviors quickly, right, you are maintaining your consistent structure. So if you consistently address the misbehaviors and you point them in the right direction of what you want them to do, then they'll have a stronger understanding of what is expected of them. Descriptions. So reduce possible further disruptions by not allowing them to continue misbehaving. So it's similar to escalations, but essentially you're potentially by responding quickly, you're reducing the thought of the student will potentially do another disruption in the future. Okay? Kind of like with the expectations as well. You're just setting that expectation. You're setting that, I guess, atmosphere in the classroom that we don't, we don't tolerate these disruptions. If you're allowed to continue, then then disruptions just become part of the classroom, and then they'll continue to do it with every class and so forth. Right? And authority. So you are the teacher, you are the manager of the classroom, you are managing them as they are your students. You need to get through the lesson, and you send a message that you're in control of the classroom by acting quickly, without necessarily flaunting like power. Like you don't want to do that in front of your students, particularly some of the older students, like teenagers and so forth, upper Mathiom as well. They want a little bit of respect, but by there are different ways we'll sort of talk about coming up that you potentially are trying to take control of the situation in a way that's like, I'm the teacher, you're sort of going to listen to me. But you can still show them that you are the authority figure without doing that in a way that's overtly saying, hey, I'm in control here. So responding quickly is a way to do that. All right. It's subtly remind them that, hey, I'm in control without overtly saying it. Okay. Now, about responding empathetically, we've got quite a bit on this topic, so we'll continue going through. A student that feels unwanted, resentful, or hurt will continue to cause issues. They may just do it for attention. They may do it because they don't care. Whatever it is, a student that doesn't feel happy in your classroom is not going to play by the rules. So you must be purposeful about how you address or respond to misbehaviors. So correct the misbehavior or the behavior itself, not the student. Right? Have a reason that aligns with the class goals. So you're not picking on students. It's not James that's being a bad student. It's James is talking, and the whole class is supposed to be listening right now. So we're all going to listen. Right? So it's correcting the behavior, not saying James is the bad student. They don't want to feel targeted as individuals. Motivate, not targeted as individuals, is being inclusive. So using we language instead of you language, as it indicates everyone is held to the same standard. It's not you should be doing this, you should be doing that. It's we're all going to be doing this for the lesson here. All right, that's what we're all doing. So it's more community responsibility that they have to do their share as part of that community responsibility, rather than saying it's all up to them to do this, do that. Modeling. So you should be a good role model for your students. So say thank you, smile, and stay calm to reinforce that it is only the behavior that needs fixing, right? So just because a student has been maybe not respecting you or talking over you or not completing the work or something, even though you've asked them to, if you hold that against them, then it becomes personal. It's not about the behavior again. It feels to the student like you're targeting them as an individual. So say thank you, smile, and be friendly with that student, even if they are misbehaving. And maybe they deserve to be disciplined or whatever it is. But you still need to show them that, again, back to that first point, it's not the student themselves, it's the behavior that needs correcting. So you're still friendly, you're still going to be their supporting teacher. And you can model that by doing what's right, by saying thank you, by smiling and so forth. Now, we're going to talk about when students are potentially quite upset. So lead with compassion first. The emotions of an upset student must be acknowledged before any corrective actions can be well received. Essentially, if you've got a crying child like this, or some students quite upset for whatever reason, just going and yelling at them, telling them to go in the corner, go do your work, go do this, go do that. They're not being heard by you. Their emotions are on display, and you're not listening to them. Essentially, if that's what's happening, right? If you're trying to just command them or tell them to do something, so you need to acknowledge their emotions first, and respect their perspective or their point of view or what they're going through at that time. And if you listen to them about their emotions and how they're feeling, they're more likely to listen to you in terms of what needs to be done for this lesson and so forth. Get into that a little bit more. So another way to emphasize or to keep on track in a positive way is like being mindful of their emotions, right? And being mindful of their perspective and how they feel, is framing everything in a positive way, right? So you want to describe what the student should do, not what you don't want. So instead of saying no phones in class, you should say phones away, or positive language, right? We're directing them to what they should be doing. If they've missed a question, perhaps, you haven't done this, you haven't done X, you can say, go back and complete this one. Or, or point them into what they need to do, not pointing out that they haven't done or that they missed or they've done incorrectly, if that makes sense. So instead of stop talking, we use sort of listen. But that sort of positive language, so focuses on what we want to do and we want to achieve, rather than being bogged down talking about what we're not doing and what we shouldn't be doing, right? So we want to give them, the students, the I guess it's really an illusion, but it's like we are leading them toward the right direction that we want them to go to, not talking about our mistakes and we haven't been doing, right? We're moving forward by talking positively about what we're supposed to be doing. Let's do some example responses. So in this little situation here, a student hits or screams at another student. It's clearly not play fighting. So it's a little bit of an extreme situation. You know, some of you may have already encountered this, but essentially, maybe you have something of this degree. Maybe you have something, not as quite serious. Maybe you've got something even more serious. But here's just some examples of things you can say and do. So get the class to do a task. So if you're lecturing at that point in time, you might want them to say, hey, turn and talk about your notes for the last slide of your partner. Turn and talk with them, and while you go and deal with the situation. Or if they're already working on a project, you can continue to say, hey, everyone, continue working on your project, and then go and address the situation, right? Go and address it promptly. So identify and listen to the feelings. So you've got two parties in this situation. One student that hits or screams, or both, and another student that's been hit or been screamed at, or whatever it is. You can, I will write it in here, but you want to address both parties, of course. Now, identify and listen to their feelings. So you can say something along the lines, I can see you're very upset. Can you tell me what happened? And get their perspective. Don't just bring it, hey, you shouldn't be hitting people. You shouldn't be yelling at people. That's going in, and one, it's talking in a negative tone about what they should and shouldn't be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And two, it's also jumping straight to the action of what you want them not doing or what you want them doing, rather than addressing with the emotion first. So talk about the emotion first, remember. Validate their feelings. I can see that's why that's upsetting, right? So they've told you what's happened, and you say, hey, I can see that's why that's upsetting. Then we're going to encourage empathy, though. How do you think you made James feel when you screamed at him or when you hit him? All right, so we're doing that. Or if maybe one student was teasing the other student, and then that's why they got hit by the student who was being teased, then you can, when you're speaking to that party, you'll be like, hey, how do you think you made James feel when you were teasing him about this. Okay, and it's you lead them in that direction. Okay, he was clearly quite upset and hit you or screamed at you or something like that. So lead them along that pathway of what happened, what emotions were involved, and then we want to talk about the behavior itself. Question it. So, what could you do instead of hitting or screaming when you're upset? Okay, how could you communicate that you want them to stop, or if they refuse to stop? What is something you can do to leave the situation, implying they should just walk away, or maybe they go speak to the teacher or something like that. Give them or lead them to find ways to deal with the situation better in the future, and essentially tell them what they're supposed to be doing. So it's not about punishing the student who hit the other student or was teasing the other student or whatever the situation is. It's about educating them on how they need to control their emotions a little bit better, be more mindful and empathetic towards their peers, and to do better with their behaviours in the future. This is actually modelled off a situation that I had in a classroom in a science lab once. Another student he hit another student. It wasn't hard necessarily, but it was still not friendly at all. And I basically spoke to both parties. I told both parties I was speaking to them, and then I encouraged them to tell me from their perspective, but also then to get them to empathise and think about how the other person felt, also what they could have done better in the future. All right. Now, last part of this is talking about not about the emotions now, but when you communicate with your students, you need to communicate clearly. So students must understand you if they are to be compliant. If they are to do what you say, they must know what exactly you're saying. So concrete, we call this is a specific and actionable directions. So for example, you would say, put your phones away instead of pay attention, right? So put your phones away is a phrase that is an action that they have to do. It's very specific. They have to put their phones away. If maybe you haven't discussed what put their phones away is, then you may need to do it, educate them on the difference between putting the phones down, putting away into their desk or into their bag, because they're putting the phones down and away are two different things. If they get technical on you, which sometimes they do, you just educate them on that quickly. That's all. Sequential. So lay out the steps with those concrete actions. So you could go, put phones away, sit up straight, eyes on me. We're going to listen. I'm going to go through this slide. I'm going to ask a few questions. That sort of things. Give them steps, all concrete actions that you can observe as well. And we'll get into that in the visibility section as well. And as part of your clear communication, link it to visuals as well. So do a gesture. So link a gesture to each action to improve the clarity of the direction. So it's not just about hearing. If they see maybe in the corner, they're paying attention to their friend, but they see you in the corner of their eye doing a gesture which you've done 100 times before, where you're like, phones away, sit straight, and you do one of these ones, and you say, and you stand up straight as well as you're talking to them, and then you say, eyes on me, and you've got your fingers pointing to your eyes or something like that. It basically just helps you communicate more. Using more mediums helps you communicate as much as possible. So you've got the visuals going, and you've got your speaking, the auditory communication as well. So all links in, it's all helpful. And sometimes if you need to get them to put their phone away while you're in the middle of a sentence talking about the slides or whatever it is you're talking about, you can actually do the gesture to a student who's on their phone without actually having to break stride in what you're saying. So gestures are very, very useful. Make sure you use them. And absolutely super important for Pratom teachers, but they're still really good for anyone in Mathion as well. Right? Okay. So we talk about visibility now. So seeing is believing, and it's really important from a lot of different perspectives, and we'll look into that now. Make it visible. So radar. A lot of this section has actually come from the Teach Like a Champion book. If you've read that, if you haven't, it's a really good resource. And sometimes you read a bunch of different techniques, but then you forget them again. So it's worth rereading, even if you haven't already read it before. And yeah, you'll see, if anyone's read it here, you'll see a bunch of techniques in this presentation or webinar from that book. We've got a copy of it available on the BFITS training resources Google Classroom, so I recommend checking it out. You don't have to read the whole book. There are chapters and like a chapter summary as well available on a link there, and so you can just sort of pick and choose a few different things. So like, I want help with classroom management and so forth. You can look in that section and probably find some of these techniques coming up. So radar. Radar is showing students, or it shows students that you are purposefully looking over them, right? You're looking at them to see if they're complying or if they're off task or something. And they need to see that you are looking. So that's what we're talking about, making it visible, showing them that you're looking for them. Compliance. Teachers need to be able to see if students are being compliant. So that's where we had that suggestion before. Instead of saying pay attention, which is hard to check if someone's paying attention or not, you might say phones away, and you can see if the phones are away. So you can check if they're compliant visually. And you might say eyes on me, and so you can see if eyes are on you rather than if they're paying attention, right? They might say they're paying attention, but if their eyes are on you, they can't say their eyes are on you if they're not on you. And you can visually confirm that. So make compliance visible so you can check if they are being compliant. Consequences. So students should see that teachers react consistently to misbehavior. So if a student's doing this or a student's doing that, you're being consistent in how you are applying those consequences. So those students can see that it's not just them. Whenever you have to tell them off or get them to correct their behavior, they're seeing that, oh yeah, well, they also tell the other person this as well. They also tell the other person that. It's not just me, because you are being consistent and making your consequences visible. You're not like, like putting students necessarily on the spot and putting them on a spotlight and showing them, all the other students, what this student's been doing and, what they have to do. It's not like, all right, James, you stand up and you do you write lines on the whiteboard while everyone watches. I'm not saying make it visible like that. I'm just saying when you are addressing misbehaviors, you do make it visible so that those consequences are visible. And we'll talk about some of those coming up as well. So a bit more onto radar. So purposeful, right? We want for students to, we want for you to be looking to see if students are on task. You should look for specific indicators. So as you're looking around the room, instead of just gazing just left and right, being like, okay, like, is everyone working? Or you think to yourself, okay, are students writing? Are their pens moving? Are any phones visible? You're looking for specific indicators which will tell you whether or not they're on task or not. Are their eyes down? Are their eyes looking down at their page, or are their eyes looking up at the board, or are their eyes wandering around? So like, where are their eyes? That sort of thing. So let's be purposeful. Now, these indicators should be linked. The specific indicators you're looking for should be part of your clear communication. So, for example, if you say eyes on me, then the students' eyes are on you. You can sort of see that. Or if you say, I want to see hands moving, or put your phones away, you're giving them things that you want to see happen. And that's linked to your communication. It's linked to what you're looking for, and students can see all of that, and you can see it easily as well. So making it sort of all visible really, really helps. Now, when you're looking, when you're using your radar to look around the room, looking for specific things, you don't want to be invisible doing that. You want students to see that you're looking. And be seen looking is another teach like a champion technique, which is subtly reminding students that you're always looking at them, always looking for them to see if they're on task or if they're misbehaving and so forth. So there's a few techniques. I've got some nice GIFs that may assist with that. So invisible column. Move your head slightly to the side as if to look around an invisible column, like this little fox here. So you just sort of, I don't know if this recording comes through, but you sort of, instead of standing up straight, you're kind of like looking around, like what's going on around there. And so it becomes more visually noticeable that you're doing it. Or your tiptoes. So even though we can't see this guy's feet right now, you can sort of see that he's reaching up as high as he sort of can. His hands are doing this thing at the same time, and he's making a strange facial expression. You probably don't want to do that. But if you stand on your tiptoes or give some sort of physical indication through your posture that you're looking out over them, you know, to get a better vantage point to see what they're doing, then it's more obvious that you're looking rather than just standing there looking. You're like, oh, what's going on over there? Reaching up and around to see what's happening there. Yeah, that helps show that you're looking. Now the sprinkler, it's like a double take. As you scan the classroom, you're looking from one way to the other. As you're going across, what's that? Go back and look as if something did catch your attention. Maybe something did catch your attention, or you could just act like, is that Ray Romano in the GIF? So something like that basically helps them. Yeah, say, did teacher actually catch me doing this or not? So get them thinking like, is the teacher seeing me? What's going on there? And a couple more here, all from the Teach Like a Champion book and slides we've got available for you to look. Disco finger, so holding your finger out to scan, just to make your gaze more obvious, so you're like looking around. And you can combine some of these together. So you might be doing that finger and then doing the disco finger, and then you're doing your looking back, right? Your sprinkler. You're going back and looking at them just to see what's going on there. So you can combine these. Politician, it's not just necessarily looking out for the bad students, but not bad students, but students that are, or behaviours that are that you don't want to see. It's not just looking out for that. It's also showing the students that are paying attention that you see them, to acknowledge them. So nodding, waving, smiling, a thumbs up or something to the ones that are paying attention. It's good that they be seen as well. So that way, they realise that they're not invisible to you when they are doing the right thing. You acknowledge that they're doing the right thing. They'll feel a little bit better for having done the right thing, because they get that positive reinforcement from you. The quarterback. So Shrek here is doing a good example for us. When you crouch to speak with a student, continue to scan the room. So continue to scan the room. So look at the problem that you're helping them with. You've got to add the past simple tense over here in this question or whatever it is. But then as you're helping write that in, you're looking up and around to see what's everyone doing. The students will wait till you're crouched over, not paying attention, to do something behind your back. So make sure you give them a quick look around, just to make sure that they're not thinking you've got a vulnerable point when you're not actually looking. Right? Make sure that they can see you, that you're still paying attention to what's going on, not just the student in front. Don't do it in a way such that the student who's talking with you feels like you're not listening to them. So listen to them, but maybe before you respond or as you're responding, just quickly do a quick check, something like that. Still make sure you pay respect to the student in front of you. Then, checking for compliance. So after you ask a student to do something, so maybe they're off task, and you ask them to get back on task, or complete this question, or I helped you with this question, now move on to the next question. Or maybe they were talking and they should have been talking, or they had their phone on them, or something like that. You've asked them to do something, they may, instead of standing there, pressuring them, looking at them, staring at them, waiting for them to do something, in an intimidation kind of way, you want to actually give them some space for them to make the decision to do the right thing. Yeah? So if you're just standing there looking at them, staring at them, they'll feel just like pressure, and it's not a decision they're making to comply or to do whatever it is you've asked them to do. They've felt compelled, or there's a word I'm thinking of to my tongue, but like felt like they needed to do that because you were pressuring them essentially. So give them that space. Give them that space. Display trust with them by looking or walking away. So looking away if you're, not near them, or walking away if you're pointing. But then use a confirmation glance to check if they're actually doing it. Right? I wouldn't necessarily jump straight back into going in and attacking them if they haven't started doing it. Maybe walk back away for a little bit longer and then do another glance. And then if they still haven't done it, in a bit, come back around and say, hey, check in and actually, question why they haven't started, even though you've given them the direction to do that. All right. So look back and, positively, not menacingly, not grimacing at them, being like, you should have been doing this, do this, but just look at them in a sort of positive, just, or neutral stance, neutral demeanor. Okay. Now, predictable consequences. I love this picture on the left. Students should not only experience predictable consequences for their actions, but also see that others also face them. So it's not about students knowing, if I do this, then the teacher's going to do that. It's if anyone in the classroom does this, then the teacher's going to respond the same way, sort of thing. It helps them grasp the importance of responsibility and making better decisions going forward. And they also see that as a community in this classroom, that behavior is not tolerated by the teacher. We're focusing on what we should be doing. Okay. And the teacher's in control of that. So we're not letting that slide. If you're letting it slide with some students and not with others, then it's not predictable, it's not fair, and students aren't going to feel like it's it's not going to feel like a nice environment for them, because they feel like, they told me off, but they didn't tell the other person off. So it's they're not incentivized to do the right thing necessarily. All right, let's go through some examples. Okay, some good non-verbal responses. Non-verbal actions make up a large portion of our communications, right? When we're trying to communicate something, we've got our voice, got the tone that we use, and we've got non-verbal communication as well. So get your message across effectively by using everything, essentially. So throw in non-verbal responses too. Control the tone of your voice as well. Gestures. So, as we talked about before, provide emphasis with learned gestures that have specific meanings. Eye contact, very important. Let students know you see them and that you're talking to them, right? You're staring off to the side and you're just talking. Students are just like, what's going on here? It doesn't make any sense. And eye contact is also very good when you are just in general, just scanning around the room as well, as you present, or as you give directions to what the students are supposed to do. With eye contact, when you make eye contact, it means something, right? Proximity control. So approaching students or standing near students to encourage them to do the right thing. If you're standing right there when they're supposed to be listening, they all know, they're supposed to be listening to you, and you stand over them and they're playing on their phone or something. They'll know, I'm not supposed to be doing that, and that they'll be more aware of it. Some students either are completely maybe engrossed in whatever they're are not supposed to be doing such that they won't even notice you, but you may need to just get their attention, and then being more close to them. So being close to them may assist you to keep them from going back to whatever it is they're doing. Okay, so just be close to them. And having like a clicker or something to help you move through slides is very useful. If you want to be able to be further away from your computer or so forth to do the work. I know some teachers use like an iPad and they project the iPad, or link the iPad to the projector and then write on their iPad. Or iPads are mobile, so you could stand up and move around the classroom as you're writing in your math problems or whatever it is you're doing. So that's an option too. I know some teachers like to have like a helper, so they get someone to be clicking the slides for them. That can be, to take a disruptive student who's usually talking to everyone and give them a role away from the other students to help click through the slides. That can be good. Personally, I don't use it just because I feel like they might just be focused on clicking the slides and trying to figure out when they're supposed to click the slides rather than actually focusing on the work and the knowledge they're supposed to be absorbing. But I mean, it can just be like a good tool to stop them from disrupting the rest of the classes. So there's pros and cons to everything, I suppose. Just a matter of finding what sort of works for you. Yeah, using eye contact and proximity control and gestures can be used throughout every situation as well. Now, let's talk about a situation where students are on their phones. So you can start with a gesture. Let's put our phones away. All right, so you've done that. The students, a few of them still on their phones. Then you might want to incorporate some BCM looking techniques. So you do one of the invisible column over there, or maybe get on your tiptoes as well, and you say, when I said phones away, I meant everybody. All right, so not just saying, hey, you, James, phones away. I said phones away. All right, you're saying, perhaps this, to maybe expand on this point a little bit. When I said phones away, I meant everybody. Saying that is giving them the benefit of the doubt that they, didn't realize when you said phones away that they were talking to them. You were talking to them as well. Obviously, you were, but it's just essentially repeating yourself without casting blame on a particular student, so they don't feel targeted. So I meant everybody. I meant everybody, including the girls at the back. Something like that, so you're not targeting a specific individual, but maybe targeting a group. That's better than isolating two individuals. Hey, still not working. All right, be calm. By this point, you'd be getting pretty frustrated. They're not listening to you. So wait silently, make eye contact as best you can with the student. Not able to make eye contact, you're silently looking at them. They're not getting the message. They're not hearing you. They're not listening to your direction about putting the phone away. Then you may want to approach, and then you may say to them individually, the one student or the group of students, that must be really fun. But we're all putting our phones away so we can complete this question or do this task. So again, talk about in that positive action. What are we doing next? Not commanding them necessarily for being on their phones. All right. So essentially, if you can point them in the right direction to we're putting our phones away because we're doing this, then if you're consistent about that, right, then they're going to realize, okay, yeah, teacher's always going to come on and tell us to put our phones away. And they're going to get it. It's going to get through their head. They're going to understand that. That's what the teacher expects. Whereas if you tell them off, yes, you're also going to give them the message that that's what the teacher expects, that they're not on their phones. So stop, get off your phones. Everyone's off their phone. Get off your phone. They're going to get the same message, but they'll also be resentful. So the idea here is you can give the same message, but if you change the way you deliver the message, you also avoid the potential of building resentment within the student or making them upset. Or making them feel disrespected or targeted or something like that. And if you can avoid that, and you can be more positive, then they'll be more likely to play ball with you. So that's part of the technique there. So these steps, stages for when students aren't doing the right thing, you need to escalate it up a little bit. That doesn't mean going into punishment or discipline mode. That sort of thing takes time out of your day. You want to be able to resolve things quickly and get through the lessons, as best as you can. And if you spend time, lecturing a student about what they're supposed to be doing, it takes time away from the lesson. So just get them onto task and focus in that direction moving forward. Energetic students. What do you do if you've got energetic students? Recognize the energy. I love the energy, guys. Let's focus it on this. All right, we're doing this task. All right, point them in the right direction. Remind them, what are we meant to be doing now, guys? All right, like, if you get them to do a group project or something like that, you come across, they're all laughing and doing something, you just come over, instead of just telling them what they're supposed to do, question it so that they know the answer, they know what they're supposed to do, assuming you've been clear about your communication and your instructions. So just remind them by getting them to repeat what they're supposed to be doing. Right? It's less I'm telling you to do this and more cooperative language. Get them to spend that energy. So a brain break, mindfulness, like a mindful minute or something like that. Maybe just change the activity, so you're changing the energy states. So going from lecture to like a Kahoot or to project work, group work, or worksheet, or change the energy state of the room. It can be quite useful as well. And just embrace the energy. Maybe the whole class is giggling for some reason. You can join in on that. Just like laugh along with them, or I had this student. It was actually like last week, and one student would make this noise, and then the rest of the students would just laugh. And so you couldn't control it because they're all just having a good time. And if you're going to be a damp on that guy, laughing, stop doing this. Pay attention. They're going to be seeing you as a bit of a party group. But so I kind of laughed with them, and said, "Oh, that's so silly," or whatever, and then it calms down again, and then before she could do it again, I preemptively made that noise. The class laughed, but then I was like, "All right, like, this is fun, but we have to do the work. Let's go do the work now." So embrace it, and shepherd them in a way by getting them on your side. If you can use that humor, use the energy that they've already got, use that in a positive way, by getting them on your side. Be like, make them laugh, right? And then they think, teacher's pretty funny. That's pretty cool. All right, but teacher's saying to do this. All right, teacher's pretty cool, but yeah, let's do that. Something like that, So sometimes embracing it can be quite useful. All right. Now, what if a student hasn't started their work? You're going around checking all their classwork. They're supposed to be doing work on page 68, something like that. Let's have a bit of a look. So investigate. Oh, I see you haven't started. So comment on what you're seeing right there. Is there something you're unsure about, or are you feeling unwell? Give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't go straight into being like, why haven't you done this work? You're supposed to do this work. What's going on? Everyone else has done the work. Why haven't you? Kind of approaching with empathy, or giving them the option to respond about how they're feeling. But then after that, pave the way. So deal with whatever that is. That they have an excuse, they have a reason, whatever it is. Maybe they don't. But then, all right, I can see but then let's show them how to do it. So do the first step with them, support them to do the second step, and then encourage them. That's great. Hey, you've got it now. Keep going, and I'll check in soon. And then actually do come back and check in. Right? So investigate, pave the way, help them get through it, and then encourage them to continue on by themselves, and come back and remind them. Don't remind them you'll come back and check in. Students talking in your time. So your teacher talk time, or your lecture or presentation. The volume that you have. Louder is not necessarily better. You want to be loud enough to be heard, but don't be so loud the students feel their voice is hidden. That's twofold. Don't be so loud, like actually that students can talk underneath your voice and get away with it because you're just so loud you can't possibly hear them talking. And I've seen that, like when I've observed some teachers that are in a situation where teachers are so loud, students can just talk, next to each other, and they're able to be hidden by, or be masked by how loud the teacher is. And using a microphone can be a problem like that too, because I don't know, something about acoustics or something. When you use a microphone and the volumes are quite loud, you just can't hear as much. It kind of smothers the environment. So sometimes, microphones are great. They help with your voice, making sure you don't lose your voice. But sometimes just using your natural voice in a loud enough fashion is better. So pick and choose your moments is what I recommend. Don't always rely on the microphone if possible. Or if you do, make sure it's not so loud that it's deafening. It's too much. Once we talked about this a little bit earlier, pause, especially mid-sentence. It tells students what you have to say is important. So you won't proceed until they listen. So pause, mid-sentence, look around, be seen looking, maybe proximity control, walk up to them, something like that. Give emphasis to what you're saying and give importance. Don't just continue on, because if you continue on, you're just trying to get to the end of your lesson, the end of your sentence or whatever it is, and that's your objective, right? Getting to the end of your lesson or slides. Whereas your objective should be getting your students to learn what you're saying and learn what you're doing and pay attention and listen, right? And so if you're sending the message that you just want to get to the end of the slides, then what they do isn't important because you're still going to get to the end of the slides regardless. So if you pause and you make them listen, it's telling them your objective is them listening and paying attention. Talk about the agenda. So remind students of the agenda of the lesson. State the current task and remind them what they're going to look forward to. Oh, I've got a Kahoot at the end. Oh, I've got a group project. You're going to work in groups. You're going to work with your friends in a second. Something like that. So it's not necessarily turning into into a pleading with them. Guys, just please give me 5 minutes and then you can go talk. Sometimes we feel like that, but don't say it like that. Say it in a way where you're telling them the structure of the lesson. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes, then you're going to go on your groups. You can talk with your groups then. Don't say, please give me 5 minutes, and then you can talk with your groups, right? You're begging for for them to follow along. It's not going to work. So keep your composure, right? Students disrespecting you or feeling like you're disrespected or frustrating or something like that, just make sure you stay composed while you address the situation. Getting upset or losing your cool will make things harder in the long run. They just won't respect you as much, and it's quite difficult to get them to pay attention if they just don't want to listen to you because they don't care, if you don't respect them. So be calm. But that's pretty much it. It's kind of questions and discussions time. I'd love to hear some other examples if you've got any of maybe techniques you use. There's lots of different things we've talked about in the proactive proactive classroom management, like including things like call and responses. So letting the students know when you clap twice that they have to clap twice, and that's something you can use as a reactive classroom management. But clap twice, they all have to pay attention. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Then they have to say, I forgot what the response was for that. That's a really good one from Kratom. And then they have to do that. I know a few do like what sound does the waterfall make? Shh. They all have to do this. Shh. So those reactive, they're proactive in a sense because you're planning to use that with your class. You've set that as an expectation and told them at the start of the class, but you use it in a reactive fashion. So I mean, all of proactive and reactive classroom management, it's all classroom management, it's all related. But yeah, if there's any thoughts, we can put it in the chat. We can unmute. But that's pretty much it for the session. Don't seem to be any questions or thoughts at this time. So thank you very much. If you've got any follow-up questions, you can always email me. I'll put the recording and links onto the BFITS training resources when I can do that. Might be a little bit delayed, but I'll get that up as soon as I'm able to. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, James. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay. Catch you next time, Jamie. Thanks, Michelle, for dropping in. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.